What's going on, everybody? As you know, the NBA draft is only a few days away. And I did make a 2021 NBA draft article, so I wanted to share that with you right now. You can see it on the screen. I'll post a link to this in the description of the video. Basically, I'm going to run through it here, just give you a little bit of a brief overview of my picks and my decisions for these selections. So we start, first of all, you can write this in stone. It's Cade Cunningham, point guard or wing from Oklahoma State. There's everything you can love about him. There's a lot of room for improvement, though. You can see him improve a little bit on defense as a facilitator. There's certain areas you want him to improve on before you put him in the game and think that he can become what people envision someone like Ben Simmons would be or something like that. There's room for improvement certainly there, especially with vision as well. But you have to just love the base that he's coming in with. You have to love what he has potential-wise from three-point land, from everywhere on the court, just as a scorer in general. And in terms of his body and his physicality, you have to really appreciate that as a prospect. So he's a slam dunk first overall pick. I don't think there's any contention here that he'll be the top guy taken. After that is where we have maybe three other prospects that are really close together in my mind, and Jalen Suggs, Jalen Green, and of course you got Evan Mobley as well. And that's really where there's a logjam. I've seen all kinds of different combinations with these three guys going in the next three selections. And I don't think that it's wrong to have any kind of take on these three players because they are close together. For me, it's Cade Cunningham, those three, and then just everyone else after that. And I am recording outside, so if I ever stop recording, it's because there's probably a wasp flying by my head or something like that. So just to give you a heads up there. But I think the Rockets going heavy at guard makes a lot of sense for me in this draft because you have Christian Wood already. You have, I think you have Olynyk, but I think he's a free agent this offseason. But I think going heavy at guard makes a lot of sense because you know that John Wall is not going to be John Wall much longer. I mean, even this past year, John Wall had some really good games, but he was not the same John Wall we know from Washington. So I have the feeling that you're not going to keep him around long-term as this rebuild continues in Houston. You really need to have someone who can score, someone who can be a little bit of a two-way player. I like what Jalen Green showed in the G League this year with the Ignite, but I'm not entirely sold on him. He's very thin, very slim. I think he's listed at 165 pounds. I'm not sure if that was the combine number, if that was the number he was listed at in the G League itself. Some of these guys did not do like the official weigh-ins at the combine. But yeah, that's a really small, like not small frame because he's 6'5", but a really thin frame. So you have to worry about that when it comes into the NBA. But overall, I think you gotta like what he has in terms of ability to score, and that's really what you're buying into here from Houston. And again, if you're the Rockets, you have plenty of time to develop guys. You're not going to be in a rush. I have the Cavs going with Evan Mobley. Now, this is really determined on how they handle Jarrett Allen's free agency situation. To bring him back, him and Mobley, I don't really know if you want them on the same team. I think you trade for Jarrett Allen, and you hope that he can be your starting center going forward and see significant minutes in that role. So in that case, I don't really see the reason for adding Evan Mobley. But if you're looking at moving on from Jarrett Allen, letting him walk in free agency, and getting a guy who might be a little bit cheaper for you, someone like Evan Mobley in the draft would make a lot of sense. The issue for him right now is he's also very thin. He's at 250 pounds, so a lot more than Jalen Green, but he's still very thin for a player his size. He's about 7 foot. He could be down to 6'10", honestly. Colleges sometimes over-measure guys on purpose. He's a defensive powerhouse. I'd like to see him more active on the boards. Rebounding-wise, I think he'd do a little bit better there. And he's not a knockdown three-point shooter, but he makes enough of them that I think you have to respect his ability to shoot from three. So I love his defense. Defense obviously was a big thing carrying him here. A little bit of concern for his weight. I think he improves as a three-point shooter. But overall, very high on Evan Mobley. One of the top 4 players in this year's draft. Jalen Suggs is the guy who might be – there's a huge hype train on him because of the shot he made, of course, in the March Madness tournament, in the NCAA tournament. But it's very up and down for me right now, Jalen Suggs. I think he's a great two-way player. I think he's going to give you that hustle constantly on defense, which gives him automatically a lot of value, maybe even more value than Jalen Green out of the gate. He's 6'4", he's well-built. I like his handles, I like his speed, his mobility. Not a great three-point shooter, but of course there's room for improvement. Those guys always improve almost when they get to the NBA. We'll go to the rim, we'll slash to the rim, finish at the rim. I think that I mentioned Kyle Lowry here because they have the Raptors taking him. In some sense, he reminds me of like a bigger, more athletic Kyle Lowry in a sense. He's going to be the guy who might not master any one facet of the game, but he's going to be better on defense than Kyle Lowry, don't get me wrong. But he's going to have the ability where he's going to be able to Be a contributor in all facets of the game. Give me a high energy type guy, high character type guy. Someone everyone's going to want to play with, someone everyone's going to enjoy playing with in the locker room. So in some sense, Suggs reminds me a little bit of Kyle Lowry. Of course, bigger and more physical, more physically gifted than Kyle Lowry. But I think I like him. I got a little bit of comparison there because I think he's going to have that similar career where he's going to be a player who might not never master one facet of the game, but will be a constant contributor in all areas. The Orlando Magic, I had him going with Scotty Barnes, 6'7", 225 pounds. I like what he could do defensively. The questions for a lot of these guys coming up here, especially for Barnes and for Jonathan Kuminga, is going to be what can you contribute on offense? So we know you can do things. You know you're really athletic, which I know the NBA is very high on drafting these athletic projects, and teams like the Thunder and Magic who aren't winning anytime soon, who have a lot of time to develop these guys. Put Scotty Barnes next to guys like bring in Markelle Fultz. You've got Jonathan Isaac come back from injury. You've got players to work on. You got Mo Bamba still on your roster. I don't know if you're going to really bet on him developing into anything, but he's still there for you technically. So I think there's a chance to develop Barnes around those guys and see what you can do with him. He's an ACC Rookie of the Year, so you know he's got the talent to play at a high level and contribute well. It's just going to be a question of, when does the scoring touch come in? Is he going to have a good scoring touch? He's not a great three-point shooter. He's not a great free throw shooter. And, of course, the NBA right now is all about being able to shoot the three, being able to shoot from the outside. He's going to be able to develop that? I really don't know, so that's my biggest concern with Scotty Barnes. We got Jonathan Kuminga, another guy who played for the G League Ignite. Another really athletic player. He's not going to turn 19 until early October, so he's going to be very raw. He's going to be very young. He's about 6'8". Only played in 13 games for the G League Ignite, so you have to worry about the lack of tape there in some sense. And he's far from a finished product, which is why he's perfect for the Oklahoma City Thunder if he makes it this far. I know that I've seen a lot of people flip him where they have Kuminga going 5 and they have Barnes going 6. Kuminga to me is just a frustrating prospect. I mean, he's got a lot of turnovers on tape, not a lot of assists. Scoring, the percentage is just awful shooting-wise. I just don't know offensively if I can trust him. But again, he's only 18 years old. And if you're the Thunder, you've got a 3 or 4 year rebuild going on right now where you get all these draft picks building up. So you can take your time with this dude. So I think he's going to land anywhere in the top 10. Going to OKC is probably a really good move for Jonathan Kuminga. The Golden State Warriors, this is a really split for me. I love the idea of getting Corey Kispert to them. I think they might actually have Kispert going to them later in the draft. Just because of the three-point shooting, because he's a little bit of a defensive guy. Add something like that. But I don't have him going here. I have Davion Mitchell going, point guard from Baylor. So back up here, Steph Curry goes down, gets hurt. Steph Curry is getting older, and he's missed time in the past. And Mitchell is a player to me who can really be a contributor on both ends. We know he's able to do defensively, a Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. And he's got multiple Big 12 all-defensive selections. That was one of the huge reasons why Baylor was so good this past year. And, of course, the three-point shooting is what jumps off the charts. 44.7% last year. The question is going to be, was it just an outlier year? Because previously he had not shot that well, not even close to that well from three-point range. You have to be a little bit concerned. He's probably not going to shoot that well from the NBA. He's probably going to start off around maybe a 37% three-point shooter, somewhere in that range. Probably split the difference between the 44.7% and where he shot previously at around 32.4%. He's also not a high percentage free throw shooters throughout his career, so you have to worry a little bit about that touch, maybe it being a bit of a fluke season. But I'm willing to buy into it. I think the Golden State Warriors will be as well. Because he's the guy who can immediately contribute to your team. I think they recognized that after drafting James Wiseman last year, they need immediate contributors, not guys to develop long-term. The Orlando Magic, again, Moses Moody. Another guy you can put in alongside the list of project players involved Cole Anthony, Antonio Spurs, Wendell Carter was there after the trade they had last year, where they shipped out Vucevic to the Bulls. Markelle Fultz, RJ Hampton's there, Jonathan Isaac. You've got a lot of players to develop. Moody's about 6'4.5". Already at NBA level strength, I believe, unlike some of the guys I talked about before who are a little bit thinner in their frames. A decent three-point shooter. Not a knockdown three-point shooter, but he shoots at a high percentage. He shoots about 36% from the field. The issue for him right now is is he going to be a spot shooter? Is he going to be able to facilitate? What's his role going to be in an offense? Again, you're in Magic. You have plenty of time to develop these guys. You don't have to rush them by any means. So I think he's a good fit here. And again, a decent three-point shooter who takes a lot of attempts from deep, so I think you can definitely buy into that. The Kings, talking about a team that has time to develop guys. Marvin Bagley hasn't worked out for them. There's been rumors about Buddy Hield potentially being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. Bringing Franz Wagner, power forward, small forward from Michigan. His brother's in the league, hasn't really worked out. He's bounced around for a couple of teams. Franz is a much better player. He's really good defensively. He flashed improved facilitation skills this past year. He's a decent scorer. He can shoot from the outside. Not at a high level yet, but he's going to get there. I don't think he'll ever be an all-NBA caliber player. I don't know if he'll ever be an all-defensive caliber player, but he's going to be an immediate contributor. He's going to fit in and be the guy who'll be the number 3, number 4 guy on a championship caliber roster. Maybe not a championship caliber roster. I think he could be the 4 on a championship caliber roster. I think he could be a top 3 option on a team that makes the playoffs. And I think the Kings right now just need to focus on getting those players in the buildings. They have one in De'Aaron Fox already. Get Franz Wagner, and you have immediately a decent player who you know is going to contribute on both ends of the floor. James Bouknight, number 10. I am so back and forth on Bouknight because you see the flashes watching the tape. You see it, but he's 6'3.5". He's pretty small. He finishes a lot inside. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that in the NBA at 6'3.5". I recognize we've seen players who are smaller than that be able to thrive in the NBA, but that's not something that happens every day. So he's smaller on the smaller side, not a great three-point shooter despite attempting about 5 per game. It's just where do you get here? Like, where do you envision the upside is in terms of his development? It's definitely on the offensive end. It's not on defense. And he looks like an NBA prospect when you watch his film. But again, where and when does the jump happen? When does he get to the next level? UConn obviously came up short in March Madness this past year, where they wanted to be. I just don't know. I mean, Bouknight had 18.7 points per game this past year, but his per 40 numbers really weren't much different from freshman to sophomore year. So I don't really know where the development's coming from. I don't really know when we get to that point. But it's hard for me to knock him outside of the top 10 or top 12 picks. I have him going to New Orleans, probably not the best fit. If they take Lonzo Ball back, they get Lonzo Ball back. Because he's going to free agency, I believe. Or has the option to hit free agency. If they keep Lonzo Ball, probably bump Bouknight down to some other level because Bouknight's a guy who right now I think needs the ball in his hands too much to be a player that can work alongside Lonzo. Keon Johnson, just an athletic freak. Just athletically freakish. Not a really big guard. Not a great scorer right now. Super athletic 19-year-old who I think can really get there. Right now he can score on the inside. They've taken athletic players in the past and guys like Miles Bridges in Charlotte. And I think right now with the young core they have, guys like P.J. Washington, with LaMelo Ball, and Bridges as well, you can bring on someone like Keon Johnson and have success. So I think adding him to that mix there will work out fairly well for Charlotte. All right, now, if you watch my NBA draft videos, you know name pronunciation, not my thing, but I will try my best. Alperen Sengun, or I've heard it also pronounced Alperen Sengun. I'm not sure exactly. I can't guarantee which one's correct, but hopefully one of them is. The Spurs have thrived taking players with international backgrounds in the past. Greg Popovich is not afraid of that at all. And Sengun was very active last year in the Turkish professional leagues. He was the MVP. He's only 18 years old. 19.2 points, 9.4 rebounds, and 1.7 blocks per game. This past year, he's about 6'10", turns 19. It says later this month, which I believe was maybe last month. Maybe it's this month. So he's basically 19 years old. It's called 19 years old. I think he's already close to 240 pounds. So much closer to NBA size than someone like Evan Mobley already. Not a super athletic player, but more of a polished guy who can finish inside well, good footwork. Kind of like that international background that we've talked about in the past, always has in the pristine footwork, the good inside skills. I think Sengun will fit right in for San Antonio, and they do need some help on the interior. The Indiana Pacers, Josh Giddey, their international prospect, this time from Australia. Scoring, not going to be his thing. 69.1% from the free throw line, 29.3% from three. Not a great outside scorer. But he's a great passer, and he's 6'8". So he's got the size. He's still a little thin, so he's got to develop the NBA body. But he's got the size. He's got the passing, some of the best passing skills of anyone in this draft. Turns the ball over quite frequently because he has the ball in his hands so often. But he's going to be a guy who can get you probably in that 14, 7-7 range. Think about like early era Alonzo Ball numbers in terms of just pure stats, not necessarily on the defensive side of the ball, but on offense, think about someone like that. 12, 7, and 7 guys, probably what you're getting right away. It's going to take a little while, but I think putting him behind someone like Malcolm Brogdon could really help him develop into a key player for the Indiana Pacers. And it's, again, just a really good facilitator, someone who's going to run your offense well, someone who's going to be able to slash inside and hopefully score for you. I just don't know where he goes in this draft. I have him going 13. I just don't know where he fits. I think somewhere between San Antonio, San Antonio has a bunch of younger guards that are already trying to develop, so maybe not there. But between like the Hornets, the Kings, Spurs, they already have young pieces at these positions, which is why he goes to Indiana. I just have trouble making him drop much further than that. And I am going to break this video into 2 parts now because I'm recognizing how hot it is out here, and I'm sweating already. I just showered. This is absolute disaster. So I'm going to go halfway through and get to 15, and then we're going to bounce. And I'm going to do a part 2 later. And I did drop Corey Kispert, too, with the Golden State Warriors. In reality, he probably won't fall as far. I just was locked in on getting him to Golden State because I know this is a guy who can kind of thrive in the Klay Thompson role. Klay Thompson obviously hasn't played basketball in a while, so he can come back, hopefully be good, hopefully be ready to go, and hopefully avoid future injuries. But you can never bank on that. Kispert, 6'7". You saw what he did Gonzaga this past year. You have to believe that he's going to be one of the best three-point shooters in this entire draft class. Because in his 137 appearances with the Bulldogs, 40.8% of his threes went in. 662 threes. That's a huge sample size. That is guaranteed production. You can count on that translating to the NBA. You can count on him being a 40% three-point shooter in the NBA because you have such a huge sample size, unlike someone like Davion Mitchell. So you can count on him being a great scorer from the outside for the Golden State Warriors. My one concern would be that he had issues against better competition later in the NCAA tournament. That's my only main concern with Corey Kispert. I think he'll be a decent player. He'll be great from the outside and do some decent defensive help. And the last pick, Jalen Johnson, forward from Duke, or wing from Duke for Washington at 15. Washington's obviously starting a new direction. They got a new head coach coming in. We don't know what's up with Bradley Beal, how long he'll be there. Someone like Johnson gives him a long-term future. He's a really athletic player, only played 13 games this past year. And again, that's a little bit too small amount of tape for me to really feel comfortable. But he's about 6'7", 6'8", somewhere in that range. Very athletic, very springy. 19 years old. Had more turnovers than assists this past year, so you have to worry about his facilitation, about his vision. It's a little bit of concern. He made 44.4% of his threes at Duke, but only attempted 18. So again, not a guy you're going to count on to shoot a ton of threes per game. Johnson probably deserves a spot in the lottery. I think he's probably going to go in the lottery because of his athleticism and his pedigree. I just don't really know, for someone like him, I'm not as high on him as the guys that put above him. There's some guys like Corey Kispert who I know is going to give me guaranteed production. Someone like Josh Giddey, who I feel really good about developing, putting on ball, and letting him run my offense. I just don't feel as good about Jalen Johnson as someone like even Keon Johnson, really. So Jalen Johnson for me is going to fall here to 15. But in reality, I reckon he'll probably go higher than that, but I have him down at 15 going to Washington. That wraps up part 1. I'm sweating, so I'm going to go inside now and film part 2. You can check out this article. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description to see the full mock draft. I'll do a part 2 for this. I said that already. And you can go check me out on Twitter at Sam_Teats33. It's up there on the top left of the screen. And yell at me if I got something wrong. Yell at me if I'm being ignorant. Tell me how to pronounce any one of these guys' names if I've got it wrong. So just give me a heads up, guys. Really appreciate you stopping by. And I will see you all in part 2.